My TNA Victory Road 2011 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view is live last night, exclusive on pay-per-view. And as far as this TNA show, I gotta say, going into this show, I think most of us knew this was going to be nothing more than a throwaway pay-per-view from TNA, because this is their pay-per-view right before lockdown. So most of the time, this type of pay-per-view leading up to one of their big shows is nothing more than a throwaway show, nothing really too memorable on it. So I don't think most of us were expecting anything great on here. Last month's pay-per-view, against all odds, a lot of us going into it thought that, this pay-per-view didn't look that good. And against all odds, I gotta say, it actually turned out to be a pretty good show from TNA. So maybe this show, I was kind of thinking, maybe the show, with a few of the things they added, maybe the show could be pretty good, but it turned out to not be a good show at all from TNA. Very piss-poor show from TNA, especially, the first hour of this show was just horrendous. Nothing good on the first hour. Then it started to pick up after that. You had the Ultimate X match, which is easily the best match of the night. Then you had Inc. versus Beer Money, which is actually a pretty good tag team title match. And then AJ Styles versus Matt Hardy was, a decent match. And then after that, the last two matches kind of hurt the show as well, which was Anderson versus RVD. The match-wise, it wasn't that bad. Started off, good back-and-forth action, a lot of good reversals. Was a little sloppy in parts. And then right when I was really getting into it, the match ends, and it ends in a double count-out. So not a good booking decision right there in a normal Contenders match, that you have the match end in a double count-out right there. And then it's basically showing people that what's the point of going out your way to check these TNA pay-per-views out, or, say if people actually want to go out their way and purchase these TNA pay-per-views, it's basically saying, well, you're not going to really get the final thing on the pay-per-view. You're not going to get what you need to see, the finale. You're going to see that on free TV. So it's giving the fans at home watching this, and anyone that's thinking about ordering these pay-per-views, another reason not to order them. When on the pay-per-view you have a double count out, then it's going to get decided on probably this coming Impact, who is actually going to be a number one Contenders match. So what was the whole point of putting this match on the pay-per-view in the first part? And then the main event, which was Sting versus Jeff Hardy. And I thought going into maybe it was going to be a good match. Unfortunately, due to Jeff Hardy, and obviously Jeff Hardy's, he was either drunk, he was on some drugs or something, or TNA at the least, they said he was not in a condition to perform. And if TNA knew this in advance, which they did, TNA should have done something where they, changed up it, put someone else in the title match instead of having just a title match on a pay-per-view. Jeff Hardy and Sting last under 2 minutes, and it just makes your company look very bad, like when that happens. And all the fans watching this could tell that, it wasn't, because Sting was banged up or, Sting's old or whatnot. It was because of Jeff Hardy that the match ended like this. Everyone could tell that. And since TNA knew this in advance, they should have done something where they would have took Jeff Hardy out of this match and put someone else in there. Maybe because you had this number one Contenders match on here, actually had a winner of the RVD and Anderson match and have one of them take on Sting instead of Jeff Hardy, which just made your company look very bad right there. So, the booking of the Anderson RVD match and double count out was terrible. The world title match was not much anything. Probably one of TNA's worst title match, especially since it only lasted under 2 minutes, and Jeff Hardy was completely fucked up. He was not in condition to perform. In the first hour of this pay-per-view was not good at all. The only thing that was really good on here was like the three matches I told you: the Ultimate X, Beer Money Incorporated versus Inc., and AJ Styles versus Matt Hardy. Not a good pay-per-view from TNA. Let me get into my review. The first matchup, which was this type of match to start the pay-per-view, should not have happened. I think they should have started the pay-per-view with probably the match that would have got the fans really into the show, which was the Ultimate X match. I think that should have been the opener, but the opener actually was Tommy Dreamer versus Bully Ray. The match ends up turning into a no disqualification false count anywhere match. Not much of anything here. I would say it was at least watchable, but some parts of it took away from the match. You had a blow-up doll get involved in the match and some other idiotic stuff. And then the ending of the match comes where you see Devon's sons. They come out there. They're on the stage. They distract Bully Ray. Then from behind, Devon is behind Bully Ray. There's a table. And then Devon and Tommy Dreamer 3D Bully Ray through the table, so Tommy Dreamer wins this match, and I would say about a 1.5, maybe 1 3/4 star match. It was at least watchable, but some of the stuff in there was terrible, and not a good type of match to start the pay-per-view. Probably would have been better if this would have been like the second or third match on the pay-per-view, and you would have had like a fast-paced opener, like, you know, an X Division match, which you had the Ultimate X. I think that should have been the opener for this pay-per-view. Then the next matchup was for the TNA Knockouts Tag Team titles. This was Rosita and Sarita versus Angelina Love and Winner. It was at least a watchable women's match. Nothing too special. Probably the only good thing came out of this was Sarita and Rosita. They did become the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. And I think these titles are completely meaningless. They should just get rid of them. But if they want to keep them, hey, at least they're finally starting to do something with Sarita, a.k.a. Sarah Stock. I'm a huge fan of her, so it's good finally seeing TNA doing something with her, so that's the plus with keeping these titles around. But you don't have enough women in the company that you need to have a Knockouts title, singles, and a Knockouts tag team title. You don't have enough women in your company to do that, and they should just have just a singles, just one women's title, and that would make your, division with the Knockouts maybe a little more competitive, since a lot of them, like Rosita and Sarita and I guess Angelina Love and Winner, they're kind of more focused on the Knockouts tag team titles instead of, the women's titles singles-wise. So they should just probably get rid of this. It was at least a watchable women's match, nothing special. Pretty much like your typical Divas match in WWE. Like I said, the only thing good out of it is Sarita and Rosita won, about 1.5 stars. But then the next matchup was Hernandez versus Matt Morgan in a first blood match. Not much of a match here. They, brawled back and forth like you expect in a first blood match. And then the match just ended in a completely idiotic fashion. You saw Hernandez, he was trying to get a chain around his hand to hit Matt Morgan with. Matt Morgan got that, hit him with it. Before this, there was like some fan that came in there to... there was some fan that came in there. They took him out. Obviously, this was not a real fan. This was a plant. Apparently, it was some former OVW champion, and I guess they were going to do some Mexican stable with, Rosita, Sarita, Hernandez, and whoever this wrestler was that came in here. So that took the ref out there, distracted him. And then, I guess, right when Hernandez looked like, obviously, he was busted open, he got, I guess, like fake blood or something and splattered it on Matt Morgan's chest, and then the ref came in there, saw that, and Hernandez wins the match. And then you see him walking up the stage, and then you see him, kind of laughing, and at the same time you see there was a cut exposed where he was actually bleeding. So kind of in a cheap fashion, he won. Not a good type of way, but I guess, continue this thing with Matt Morgan and Hernandez. And, Hernandez is supposed to be the heel. It's kind of a heelish thing, but just kind of a stupid thing to do right there. Obviously, you can tell Vince Russo wrote that type of ending with that match. But then the next matchup was easily the best match of the night. This was Robbie E versus Max Buck versus Jeremy Buck versus Kazarian, an Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship. A lot of good stuff in here. Max Buck, Jeremy Buck, they did some really good stuff in here. Kazarian did a lot of good stuff. And Robbie E, I'm not a huge fan of him, but he didn't really take away from this match. And even Cookie being out there, thankfully she didn't get involved in the match much. She was just out there, cheering for Robbie E. And the one or two times she got involved didn't take away from the match at all. And during this, I guess Jeremy Buck wanted to have this X Division Championship for himself, so he was basically telling Max Buck was basically telling Jeremy Buck that he wanted to win this title by himself, so basically telling him what to do. So you saw a little friction between them two. Kazarian easily did some of the best stuff in here. Then the match comes where you saw Robbie, he was bringing a ladder into the ring, trying to climb up, grab the X Division title, and then you saw Kazarian above him, pretty much walking the rope up there, and then grabbing the X Division Championship, so Kazarian wins the title. A lot of good stuff in here, and to entertain the X Division match and the Ultimate X match. And I would say about a 3.5 star match, easily the best match of this pay-per-view. And if there's one thing you need to check on this pay-per-view, it's this match, and probably if this is the only thing you see on here, that's really all you need to see, even though the next two matches weren't too bad, which was first the Inc versus Beer Money for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. These two teams have pretty good chemistry with each other. You saw some good back and forth action. And thankfully, Beer Money retains the championships. And then looking at the end of the match, I don't know if this is just something they're going to be furthering something with Jesse Neal and Shannon Moore, but it looks like maybe they're going to be going to a breakup, which will not be a good thing to do because I think this Ink tag team is probably the best thing you can do with Shannon Moore and Jesse Neal because neither one of them will work as a singles wrestler, and they work pretty good as a tag team. You know, they're not an excellent tag team or whatnot, but when you put them in there with someone like Beer Money, you're going to get a good, entertaining tag match, which you did here, and I would say about a 2 3/4 star match. Like I said, Beer Money retained the TNA Tag Team Championships. Then the next matchup, which was AJ Styles versus Matt Hardy. And this was a pretty good match. Good back and forth action. These two worked very well with each other. And obviously Ric Flair tried to get involved, trying to cost AJ the match. And then AJ actually hits the spiral tap, which he doesn't pull out that much to actually pick up the victory in this match by defeating Matt Hardy right there. So pretty entertaining match from these two. You started off a little slow, then built up, and it was a pretty entertaining match, I would say, not like the tag match, about 2 3/4 star match. Pretty entertaining match. Good for what it was. Then the next matchup, which was Mr. Anderson versus RVD in a number of contenders match. This was starting off very good. I liked the beginning of it. You saw, them two at the beginning had very good chemistry with each other. You saw a lot of good counters, reversals. It was very entertaining there. Then at some part, I guess something happened between these two that the match started to get a little sloppy. A lot of miscues and stuff like that, and just complete fuck-ups on either RVD or Mr. Anderson's part. And then it started to pick back up, started to get back into it. And then right when I was really getting into it, the match just ends. They're out of the ring. They're towards the ramp. Mr. Anderson hits the mic check on RVD, and the ref counts both of them out. So the match ends in a double count out. Then the crowd is chanting, restart the match. Obviously, that did not happen. Then they just go to Mike Today and Taz. And that's the end of that. So you don't have a number 1 contenders match. And then Taz says, well, we're going to have to find out what happens on Impact here, which doesn't do a good job of giving people reasons to buy your pay-per-views. If you do a number 1 contenders match on a pay-per-view, you should have a winner. There should be a winner. It shouldn't be decided on Impact, because then if people see that, they're going to be like, well, the decision didn't come out on the pay-per-view, but actually got decided on Impact, so why would I buy the pay-per-view? That's basically the message you're sending your fans. And with the, no contest, double count out, and some of the stuff in between the match, beginning of the match, and I did like some of it, so I'm going to at least give it two stars. Some people might say that'd be a little too generous for this match, but there were some parts of this match I did enjoy, but just the ending of it and a no contest, double count out was just a poor decision to make right there. Then you had next, which was the main event for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, Sting versus RVD, like I talked about at the beginning of this, and obviously everyone that watches pay-per-view, or if you didn't see the pay-per-view, you at least have heard of it, which was Jeff Hardy was obviously in no shape to perform. He was definitely on something, or something was wrong with him that he could not perform. Take that for what it is. Jeff Hardy, he was either drunk, he was on some drugs, or something like that. Something to make him not be able to perform to his fullest ability. So that hurt right there. And like I said earlier, since TNA knew this in advance, even though Jeff Hardy versus Sting was your advertised world title match, and it's always bad if you don't deliver what's advertised. In this situation, since you only got a 2-minute title match, and it just came off very bad, made your company look so bad, it would have been worth, saying that, doing something, having someone beat up Jeff Hardy, him written off, and then actually having a winner to the match that was before this, which was the number contenders match, RVD versus Mr. Anderson, and you should have had a winner of that, and whoever actually won that took on Sting, and you actually would have been given a title match that actually lasted some time. Not saying you would have been given a great match, but you would have at least been given a world title match, and it wouldn't have made your company look bad, and might have, with that, if you would have done something like that, you would have actually had a winner to number 1 contenders match, and you would have actually had a world title match. And those two things at the end of the show and the beginning hour of the show, which is really what drug this show down. I would give this show about a 5.5 out of 10. Sting obviously retained the title. It was only about a minute and a half, 2-minute title match. he hits the death drop onto Jeff Hardy to retain the championship. Just not a good way to end your pay-per-view right there. And especially TNA, it's proven TNA, and all the fans have been saying, TNA, you're not smart to have a drug addict as, either a world champion. Thankfully, he isn't world champion anymore. And I think the worst decision TNA made was having Jeff Hardy defeat Mr. Anderson last month at Against All Odds. And I think Anderson should still be TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I'm not like a huge mark of Anderson. I'm not a huge fan of Anderson, but if you hear the way the crowd reacts, he has that crowd right in the palm of his hand. The crowd is really behind him, and he's one of the hottest things going on in TNA. And him having that championship, the crowd really just loved it, and then you just completely royally screwed yourself by then having Jeff Hardy defeat him just a month after. He only had the title for a month, and that was probably one of the worst decisions TNA has made in a long time, other than probably back in the day where they didn't have Joe as champion when they should have. And Anderson, in my eyes, Anderson's kind of like Christian in TNA. He's kind of one of those guys that didn't really get his due in WWE, and TNA could have said, proved, hey, this guy was something that you should have used, and see, we done something with him that you didn't do. And they could have done that with Anderson. They completely just really screwed themselves there. So just that stuff with the title match, the no contest in the first hour of the show just drug the show down. Like I said, I give the pay-per-view a 5.5 out of 10. Check anything out. Check out the 3 matches I told you. The Ultimate X match, which was the best match on here. Probably the one match I would say was very good. And then you saw 2 pretty good matches, decent matches. The tag team title match and AJ Styles versus Matt Hardy was pretty entertaining as well. And yeah, that's it for my TNA Victory Road 2011 pay-per-view review. Peace.